The movie Chariots of Fire tells the story of two British Olympic athletes, Harold Abrahams and Eric Liddell. Now, Eric Liddell was Scottish, a dedicated Christian, the son of missionaries, a star rugby player, and a very fast yet unorthodox runner. Harold Abrahams was Jewish, son of an immigrant financier, excelled at everything, and also a very fast runner. Both had hopes of representing Great Britain in the 1924 Olympics. Now, at one point, there was an England-Scotland track meet where Abrahams and Liddell faced off in the 100-yard race. Eric Liddell won the race, and afterward, a thoroughly dejected and discouraged Abrahams didn't know what to do. He had never been beaten before. Previously, he had approached a famous trainer, Sam Musabini, asking him to be his personal coach. Musabini was undecided. He told Abrahams that he would watch him and let him know. After Abrahams lost to Liddell, Musabini told Abrahams he would coach him. Abrahams at first was too discouraged to even think about it, but Musabini encouraged him and told him, "I can find you another 2 yards." 2 more yards would have won him that race. That word of confident encouragement gave Abrahams hope, and he began training under Musabini with tenacity and vigor, and it would pay off. He won the Olympic gold in the 100 meters, beating the favored Americans. Liddell, by the way, who believed it was wrong to do sports on Sunday, refused to run the Olympic 100 meters after discovering the heats would be run on Sunday. He did, however, win gold in the 400 meters, setting an Olympic record that would stand for 12 years. Encouragement can make a huge difference in our lives and in the lives of others. It can help us or others find 2 more yards. The book of Acts includes the story of a man named Joseph, who had the gift of encouragement and devoted himself to encouraging others. In fact, he was such an inspiration and motivator of others that no one called him Joseph, but rather Barnabas, which means son of encouragement. Today I want to highlight 3 ways in which he encouraged others, helping them figuratively to find 2 more yards. First of all, he sacrificed for the good of others. We read that Barnabas sold a field he owned and brought the money and put it at the apostles' feet. Here we see Barnabas sacrificed financially to help others. In this case, he made a significant sacrifice, giving the entire amount he received from selling property. Putting it at the apostles' feet is an expression meaning he gave it to the church, to be used in whatever way the apostles thought best, and the context tells us that it was used to help other believers who had financial need. Now, Pat and Doris had finally been able to buy a house. They were so excited. It was a big step. A couple months in, though, they realized they had made a significant miscalculation about the cost. They had forgot to factor in property taxes. And when they got the tax bill, they just didn't have the money to pay for it and would be in danger of possibly losing their home. They approached their new pastor for advice and prayer. As their pastor listened to their story, he and his wife were prompted by the Lord to help. However, the pastor himself was in a difficult situation. The church couldn't afford to pay him a salary, and he hadn't found other work yet. However, they had just put a new furnace in their house and had money saved up to pay for it. Instead, they took that money and gave it to Pat and Doris, who pledged to repay it over the next year. And eventually they did. But the willingness of the pastor and his wife to give them that money, to sacrifice, gave the couple a tremendous boost help them keep their home, and strengthen them in their faith. We can be encouragers by giving sacrificially. It may be through a cash for change day that helps a needy family that brings encouragement. It could be the sacrifice of time to help a classmate who's struggling to understand something in a subject, or sacrificing free time to help a neighbor. That there's just no way or no end of ways we can sacrifice for others. Not only did Barnabas help others find 2 more yards by sacrificing financially and in other ways for the good of others, he also reached out to the newcomer. Rumors had come to Jerusalem that Saul, who was arresting and even killing Christians, had become a Christian. Now he was back in Jerusalem, but believers were a little afraid to befriend him because they thought it could be a trick, a ploy to seek them out. Barnabas, however, reached out to him. Barnabas took a chance and got to know Saul, who later was called Paul, and then introduced him to the church. A college student came late into a worship service of a rather conservative church where men dressed in suits and ties and the women in dresses and skirts. He was in cutoffs, sandals, a ragged t-shirt, and wild hair. The church was full, the service underway. As he walked up the aisle, though, no one tried to make room for him, but rather looked at him rather judgmentally. Finally, he got to the front, and since no one made room, he sat on the floor. Now, even though the service continued, most people were rather distracted by this. And then they noticed one of their respected elders making his way up toward the young man. Everyone expected him to tell the student he was improperly dressed. But instead, with some effort, he got slowly down onto the floor beside him and just sat with him. And by his actions, he befriended the outsider. And it was only a few weeks later that the young man became a Christian. Think of how much you could encourage others by befriending someone new. I know it's more difficult in these COVID restriction times, but think about ways you can be welcoming and include those who are new, or consider how you might befriend and include someone who doesn't have many friends. Paul eventually became a leader in the church because Barnabas reached out to him as an outsider. Also, Barnabas recognized the gifts of others. The church in Antioch was exploding in growth, and Barnabas was the lead pastor. With all the new Christians there was a huge need for good Bible teaching. They needed someone who knew the Bible inside and out and who could explain it well to the people. Barnabas knew they needed someone more skilled than he. He knew that Paul had studied under the greatest rabbi of the day, Gamaliel. He was aware that Paul was a brilliant scholar and a very good teacher. And so he invited him to help at Antioch, and the work flourished. A few years later, the church at Antioch chose Barnabas and Saul to be missionaries. Barnabas was selected to be the leader of the mission, and in the Acts account, he is mentioned first. And after their initial work in Cyprus, we see that Paul becomes the leader and is mentioned first. See, Barnabas recognized that Paul was a more gifted leader than he was, so I believe he encouraged Paul to take the lead. And as a result, the work prospered even more. We can encourage others by recognizing their gifts and encouraging them to pursue them. Some of your classmates, for example, are gifted in art. Well, let them know. Encourage them in that. Some are gifted musicians, like people on the praise team. Tell them you appreciate their ministry. Some are gifted athletically. Encourage them in it. And don't simply commend those who are already in the spotlight, who are the, quote, stars. Take note of those who may be just starting out, but you can tell they have giftedness in that area and it needs to be developed. You senior students have both an opportunity and a responsibility to encourage younger students to pursue the development of their gifts. You can be a great blessing to others by spurring them on to hone their talents. You can help them find 2 more yards. Harold Abrams would never have become an Olympic gold medalist if Sam Musabini had not told him he could find him 2 more yards and thus encouraged him. Now, Harold had to work and train hard to achieve that success, but it wouldn't have come without Sam's encouragement. Paul may never have become the great apostle and missionary statesman he did if Barnabas had not encouraged him. And most of us can probably think of times when someone encouraged us, whether it was a parent when we were learning to ride a bike or some other skill, a coach when we were working on, say, soccer skills, a teacher when we were struggling with a certain subject. We all need encouragement from time to time, but we're also called to be encouragers. Ask the Lord to show you ways in which you can be an encouragement to someone. Perhaps it may be through giving of your money or time to help someone. Maybe you could welcome someone with a smile, an offer of friendship, and including them in your group, thus inspiring them and giving them hope in a new situation. Perhaps you can see some potential skills in another person, telling them could be the boost they need to pursue their gifts. Maybe you can help someone find 2 more yards in their race today. God bless you.